Mr. Dali, we're going to talk in English, which I know is not your language, but I'm sure you're going to manage wonderfully.
Yes, my English remain very, very problematic, but this is not so important because see somebody catch only a little piece of my ideas, this is absolutely sufficient because Dalinian ideas possess one tremendous power of germination.
Well, I quite see that. The first question that I wanted to put you, it really ought to be about modern art, but I can't help it. There's some delicious frivolity in you which makes me ask it, is how did you manage to produce those marvelous moustaches?
In the beginning of this moustache, use one very natural product, the dates, you know, the fruit.
I know.
In the last moment of dinner, not clean my fingers.
Yes.
Only put a little in my moustache, remain for all afternoon very very efficiently.
Well, and that's how it began.
Yes, but now use one real product, very good, in the Place Vendôme, is Hungarian wax.
Oh, yeah.
Pinot. It's very well-known wax. Is already Proust, Marcel Proust used the same.
Yes, but his was a little pointed one, wasn't it? It didn't have a splendid upturn
yes,
like yours.
Use this wax, use this wax in one other manner, in one other mood, in one depressing psychosis way.
Yes, I see.
A little depressing and melancholic. My moustache, contrarily, is very gay, very pointed, very aggressive.
Do you have any trouble with it at night? I mean, do you have to peg it or anything like that, or does it stand up at night?
No, in the night, clean every night. Every coming soft, sleep.
So at night it droops down while you're sleeping.
Completely.
And then in the morning up she goes again.
3 minutes. Only in 3 minutes fix my moustache.
And then you feel you can face the world with that wonderful moustache standing up.
Yes, because every day becoming much more practical for my inspiration.
Well, I'm fascinated to know that. Mr. Dali, you've come over, haven't you, to paint a portrait of Laurence Olivier?
Exactly.
How's it going?
It's very good, very good. Only work 15 minutes is almost complete.
You did the whole thing in 15 minutes?
Sur Laurence, taking 2 hours for put the makeup, the nose, everything. And myself in 15 minutes accomplish the portrait. Now it's necessary only realization of this portrait. This is perhaps 1 month.
But it's
everything is in my mean very clear and very violent.
Yes. Mr. Dali, who, apart from yourself, would you regard as a good portrait painter today?
Myself believe there no exist one
Who?
in modern time.
Nobody at all. Have you ever
Picasso is the only possible create extraordinary good portraits. May not like it, this kind of activity.
Augustus John, have you ever seen any of his portraits?
It's a very big ability in the drawing, very good draftsmanship in the drawing, but the painting appear me the same characteristics of the other English painters, you know, very dirty and very melancholy, sad and depressing, very depressing.
You feel that our art as a whole suffers from an undue excess of melancholy, really? Much melancholy. I noticed you'd been to see some exhibition and there was a donkey there in it. And
yes, just can talk about this melancholy. Remember this exhibit, every of one of these is very young British painters. Everyone paint the more sad and melancholic kind of animals, fish, people, houses. Everything very dirty also, only the more dirty colors and the more depressing effects.
Now, why do you think that is? Why should they all be so sad? Why should they paint this poor old donkey with such a sad,
this is one, understand the reason that these young people is so melancholic, no understand?
No.
Because myself believe, contrary, that the modern atomic age is very gay. No, nothing is more gay than the collision and explosion of intra-atomic conflicts of nuclear physics.
You feel that really livens things up enormously.
For me, is the more happy thing is look these terrific conflicts about electrons and pi mesons and atoms Is everything jumping and romping in a completely extraordinary eurythmic feeling.
Yes, I see what you mean.
Myself is every day is more gay. Around me look everybody every day more sad, more depressing, and more physical and moral exhaustion.
Do you find that true in New York as well as here in poor old Europe?
No, New York in this moment offer one very big quantity of abstract painters. Myself no like it abstract painting because believe it's only one part of, it's one decorative art, but these paintings of New York is plenty of vitality.
And on the whole, rather...
Enormous vitality, completely explosive.
Would you still call yourself a surrealist as a painter? You were originally, you belonged to the school of surrealism in Paris.
Myself believe that now, myself is the only surrealist continued this kind of inspiration.
You are in fact the sole survivor of the surrealist movement, rather.
Yes, avec la différence que myself like it, incorporate and sublimate the first experience of my life in the big classical tradition of Spanish painters. The bottom of my inspiration remain completely delirant and surrealistic.
But the school, as a school, you feel, has rather gone out of existence.
The school is disappeared because becoming one academic school, with no personality. It also collapsed in this kind of sadness and melancholy of the other kind of modern schools.
I see. So that really you feel that surrealism, having started when you were with it as very gay, has now sunk into melancholy and despair, and that you alone remain as a true representative of it.
Absolutely true.
Now, all your wonderful jokes that we know about, taxi cabs with the rain inside and so on, you're going to go on with those jokes.
This corresponds to first period of my life. The moment of myself is very big interest in psychoanalysis, coming in London for meet Dr. Freud. But now my interest is only about the tremendous progress of nuclear research and nuclear physics.
And so really that represented a phase in your career, those jokes that we all knew about, and now you move on and all your life will be to the rhythm of atomic explosion.
Exactly, one new kind of atomic and nuclear mysticism.
Well, thank you very much. That's a fascinating phrase, nuclear mysticism.
And now let's meet our first contestant. Will you come in and sign in, please? Panel, as you probably have realized, there is an area of identification here that might be in appearance, costuming, name, some area of identification which would give you too much information, so you're blindfolded. I would just ask our guest if you are fully familiar with how we keep score.
Yes.
All right, then in that case, let's let the folks at home and our friends here in the theater know exactly what your line is. Guest, who must also be unnamed, is self-employed. With that, let's begin the general questioning with Arlene Francis.
Are you associated with any of the arts?
Yes.
Would you ever have been seen on television?
Yes.
Are you a performer?
Yes.
Would you be considered a leading man?
Yes.
I got to move in here. Actually, in the general context of the questioning, we would have to accept that all the affirmative replies, except perhaps the last one, are not misleading in any major degree. However, I think the last answer is misleading, and we could not accurately describe our guest as a leading man.
He's a misleading man.
A misleading man he is. 1 down and 9 to go, Mr. Third.
Have you achieved eminence in some field other than television?
Yes.
Would it be the sort of exploit that might possibly reach the front page of a newspaper?
Yes.
Is it an exploit that's been on the front page of the newspapers within the past couple of weeks?
No.
No. 2 down and 8 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Do you imagine that we're blindfolded because one or more of us would recognize you at sight?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Are you accustomed to appearing before audiences?
Yes.
When you appear before audiences, do you ever wear less than you're wearing now?
When you appear before audiences, do you ever wear less than you are wearing now? I would say that under certain specific conditions, it is not impossible that our guest would wear less than is being worn now, but it's not necessarily germane to what it is we're trying to arrive at.
Is that a yes or a no?
That is a kind of up and down yes.
Well, all right. Do you have anything to do with sports or any form of athletic endeavor?
Yes.
Ball conference. Yes, all right. Now, I think it would be too misleading to suggest that our guest had a basic affiliation with sports. This is not to say that it is not within the compass of his enjoyment to indulge in this particular endeavor.
Thank you.
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Lawford.
I'm still working on the last one. Do you appear continuously on television? By that I mean once a week or once a month. Can I see you?
No.
No. 4 down and 6 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you use anything in your hands for your job? Like a pencil or a typewriter or anything like that?
Yes.
Would you be considered a writer?
Would you be considered a writer?
Yes.
Yes,
There's nothing this man doesn't do. What we have to guess is an all-around man. Are you well known because of a book that has been published of yours?
Miss Arlene, if I may interrupt here, I would have to agree that we must consider that our guest is a writer.
We're going to agree that we must consider that our guest is a writer. We're going to consider it. You mean we're going to consider whether he is or whether he isn't?
No, this is merely actually to try and be completely fair. The talents of our guest are not encompassed entirely in this area of work.
Oh, then you can do several things. Truly, except sports.
That's a fair assumption, yeah.
Uh-huh. Have you had... I'm terribly lost. Have you had something published?
Does our guest have something published?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Does he write humorously?
Do you write humorously?
Yes and no.
The answer then, I think, is properly yes and no.
Oh. Could he, does he ever do any drawing like comic strips?
Do you ever do any drawing like comic strips?
Yes.
Yes?
Our guest says, yes, he does drawings like comic strips.
Is there something quite unusual about our guest?
I beg your pardon, Arlene? I missed that last one.
I just ask if there is something unusual because everything that he does, the audience laughs about.
No, there's nothing unusual, actually. This sort of thing goes on all the time.
I'm going to pass to Bennett.
Mr. Cerf?
You are a human being.
Very much so, Bennett. Very much so.
And there is no animal or dummy out there with you.
That's right. There is no animal or dummy out there with him except, perhaps...
I'm not talking about the master of ceremony.
That'll be all.
Have you ever written a book that was published by my firm?
Did Random House ever publish a book for you?
Yes.
And that'll teach you to make remarks about the master of ceremonies, sir.
Was this book published within the past year?
No.
No, that's 5 down and 5 to go, Miss Gilgallen.
Is it possible that we have not yet struck upon the major thing that our guest is famous for?
That is very possible.
He is still maintaining that he's a performer.
Well, yes, in the degree that he was asked if he had anything to do with the arts and then was asked if he was a performer, in that large context, we would have to accept that he was indeed a performer.
Well, yes, I'd love a conference, Arlene.
Was there a call for a conference?
May we have a conference, John?
You may have 15 seconds for a conference, and I'm going to give you 1 minute more to get it.
Ask if he could use his mustache to paint.
Have you a mustache that is rather well known? In fact, could you be almost caricatured just by that?
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you, Arlene. Are you Salvador Dali?
Salvador Dali is right.